Good morning, people. Good to be with you again. Last week we finished off on the Friday with Jesus talking to his disciples about immediately getting into the boat. You see, Jesus was very popular and he could not share his glory with anybody. He saw the disciples just about to take a little bit of his glory from him, and Jesus said, guys, be very careful. You never want to touch the glory of God. Get in the boat. And he took them away, we read, to a quiet place. I would love to have been fly on the wall to hear that conversation. But a very wise man once said to me that there are three temptations in the ministry. They are these: to shine, to whine, and to recline. Shine, whine, recline. Those three things are going to get you into a lot of trouble. The first one Jesus dealt with was the shine aspect. Disciples wanted to shine. Hey, we're with Jesus. We're one of his buddies. Check us out. And Jesus said, we need to deal with that shine attitude. But then in the next section of the passage, we see Jesus dealing with a bunch of whining disciples. Let me read to them about their whine. You're probably going to think it was a legitimate one, but here it is anyway. When evening came, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. About the fourth watch of the night, he went out to them walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out because all saw him and they were terrified. And they cried out to Jesus, oh, Jesus, help us. Oh, Jesus, if that's you, then please come and save us. And Jesus looked at this and thought, man, you guys have been with me through many ups and downs. You've seen us heal. You've seen us deliver demons. You've seen us stand against the course of nature. And now you're whining just because you find yourself in a bit of a storm. And they, the disciples, were whining. But then it's quite interesting because it says, and all the disciples saw him. They all saw him. They found out eventually, after some negotiation, that this was Jesus, who they were really hoping it would be. And yet you find that even though all of them saw Jesus, they knew who he was. They knew this was Jesus. And yet only one of them got out the boat. What happened to the other 11? They continued in their whining. And then they whined even more, I'm sure, when they saw Peter walking on the water. And they would have said, Peter, get back in the boat. Don't you think you're making us feel bad, Peter? You make us feel bad. Just get back in the darn boat and let's all sink together. And isn't it crazy how we'll whine about circumstances? We'll whine when somebody else maybe shines a little bit, even though Peter fell and he went into the water. The disciples were really a bunch of whiners. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't have whined at the same time. I'm a little bit nervous about big waves and mighty wind. But when Jesus comes, all whining can stop. You know, Jesus cannot use anybody while they're in the whining mentality. Have a look at across Scripture and you see Moses whining. You know, I can't talk and I'm nobody and I've got a track record back in Egypt, and he was whining. We see Gideon whining because he's the weakest man of the weakest tribe of the weakest nation of Israel. And God had to deal with their whining spirit before he could really use them to do anything constructive. Now, as I look around, you know, Christians should not be known for their whining. I know circumstances are not great, but the world whines a lot. We whine about this, we whine about that, and this isn't good enough, and only if they did that. I got to tell you, people, if there's one characteristics of Christians that I just love, it should be that of optimism. To say, okay, you know, it's not that good. We're not burying our heads like an ostrich in the sand, but we are optimistic. If not for the future here, for the future in eternity, because that's the big one. And when we have a great picture of what eternity is going to be, what eternity is going to look like, I'm going to tell you, people, it makes all the problems of this world kind of insignificant. It makes them fade, it makes them go away if we just had the right view of eternity. You see, it's the vision for the future that stops us whining in the present. So if we're whining, let's stick a cork in it and let's look to the future and see what God has prepared for us. And I know it's in the future, but it's the future that should determine who we are in the present. So here's my deal. People, let's go out there and let's be optimistic. Not stupidly optimistic that everything's going to be okay. Even if everything's not going to be okay, it doesn't matter, because eternity is going to be totally and totally awesome. So let's be known for that. Not like the disciples, who even though missed the storm, they whined. Shine, whine, and tomorrow I'm going to talk about recline. Okay guys, have a fantastic day and I look forward to being with you tomorrow. Bye.